Happy Mother's Day. I'm Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, the Trumpocalypse is upon us. Donald Trump wraps up the Republican nomination. Hillary Clinton loses in Indiana, but is on track to be the Democrat nominee. And IKEA is coming to Oak Creek, and a local manufacturer decides to transfer ownership of the company to its employees. The Bucks unveiled dramatic renderings of the interior of their new arena. More deadly shootings in Milwaukee. And the FDA cracks down on e-cigarettes. And in a story with potential long-term ramifications, Aaron Rodgers and girlfriend Olivia Munn get a second dog, a rescue pup named Frank. 2 dogs. It's getting serious here. But we start with a presidential race, capping one of the most improbable rises in political history. Donald Trump sealed the deal after losing Indiana rivals Ted Cruz and John Kasich dropped out, making Trump the presumptive nominee. But will Republicans rally around Trump? As you know, I'm a never Trump guy, and I was on MSNBC the other night, and this is what I said. I mean, the reality is that, Donald Trump is a serial liar. He's a race baiter. He's a xenophobe, somebody who mocks the disabled, who mocks women. And Republicans who roll over, who think this is business as usual, are going to own all of that. And I want them to think about this over the next 6 months, that every slur, every insult, every outrage, every lie, every wacky conspiracy theory, they're going to have to defend, they're going to have to rationalize, or they're going to have to evade. And, the reality is that at some point you have to step back and go, okay, look, this race is over in terms of, I think, who wins the presidential election. But principled conservatives have to ask themselves, are they willing to sell their integrity for this guy? Because it's going to be very hard for a lot of Republicans to walk back after this is over and say to minorities, say to women, say to young people, that's not us, that's not who we are. Because you know what? If they back Donald Trump, that is who they are. But some Wisconsin Republicans were quick to jump on the Trump train. State Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald was quick to endorse the billionaire, but then on Thursday, Speaker Paul Ryan said that he was not ready to make an endorsement.
I'm just not ready to do that at this point. I'm not there right now, and I hope to, though, and I want to. But I think what is required is that we unify this party. And I think the bulk of the burden on unifying the party will have to come from our presumptive nominee.
So are Republicans going to rally around Trump? Joining me on our panel this morning, the Milwaukee Community Journal's Mikel Holt, former Republican State Representative Michelle Litjens, political strategist Lynne DeBruin, and the managing editor of RightWisconsin.com, Collin Roth. Well, Collin, what are Republicans going to do right now? Are they going to jump on the Trump train?
Most will. I think the path of least resistance, unifying against Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a galvanizing figure for a lot of Republicans. Many will, but some won't. And
how significant was that statement by Paul Ryan that he wasn't ready to do it yet?
It's highly significant. I don't think there's precedent for a Speaker of the House, the highest-ranking elected Republican, to say, I'm not ready to endorse the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party. It's very, very significant. And it's also a signal to a lot of conservatives to say, hey, you don't have to endorse this guy without conditions. Wait to see what he will do. Wait to see if he can take down his tone a little bit on some of these issues, if he can embrace some conservative ideas.
Well, I thought it was striking that Donald Trump's response to that was basically to slap back at Paul Ryan and say, well, I'm not ready to endorse his agenda, and essentially saying that he didn't need to unify the party, that he didn't need conservatives. So does that make the job easier or harder?
I think it's harder, but I think Ryan will eventually have to come around because he's gaveling in the convention that Donald Trump will be nominated at. But I think it's a good sign and a good stand for Paul Ryan. Okay, now, Michelle Litjens, State Senate Leader Scott Fitzgerald, very quick to jump in, said he thought actually that Donald Trump would help State Senate Republicans on the ballot. As far as I can tell, he's pretty much the only prominent Republican in the state to jump in that enthusiastically. Your reaction?
I think he is. I don't really think he did the right thing there. I know Ryan had jumped in and said we all need to unify behind this guy. So a few other elected officials across the country did the same thing. But in the the state assembly, they said, hey, he needs to prove himself. He needs to prove that he agrees with us on some issues.
Okay. What do you think, Lynne DeBruin? Okay,
I mean, as a Democrat, right? Yes and no, because he's one of 2 people in the entire country right now who might become president of the United States. So when it gets to that level, I'm not enjoying this at all. all. But I do think that, you know, it's not just Paul Ryan who's not ready yet. There are key Republicans who are flat out refusing to endorse him, and this is unprecedented. You've got every single former Republican president of the United States that's living, and every former Republican presidential nominee that's still alive are all refusing to endorse him.
But it may not matter, because isn't Donald Trump going to draw, you know, blue-collar Democrats? Is he going to draw some of those, Mikel Holt? You look a bit skeptical?
No.
Well, you know, unlike Lynn, I'm enjoying this. I'm watching the GOP implode right in front of my face. You know, Donald Trump's constituency are not really necessarily blue-collar.
No, they are blue-collar.
Well, I think they're rednecks, and I don't mean that in an offensive way. I mean, they're farmers. They're all of these folks.
I'm sure they won't find it offensive either. Really. Why don't you just call them
the
crackers?
Republican Party has ignored all these years.
Well, so has the Democratic Party.
Well,
I mean that's where we're at here.
This is the base of the Republican Party that has grown over recent years.
Big question. You had Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse write an open letter to a majority of Americans saying, you know, we can do better than the choice between these two dishonest New York liberals. There should be a third-party candidate. Should there be a third-party candidate?
This is hard. You do not want Donald Trump being the face of the Republican Party. You do not want him being the only one speaking for all of the candidates down ballot.
Should there be a third choice here?
It's a nice idea. I highly doubt it's going to happen, though. The ballot access issues are just too high.
I agree. I think, though, that I agree with what Michelle said. I think it is very important. I would love to have a conservative third-party candidate, but it's also going to be very difficult. But but these are very unusual years. What has your glass half full this week? What has your glass half empty? We'll go on the table. Mikel Holt, you're first.
Well, my glass is half full because President Obama visited Flint, Michigan, and declared that help is on the way for the victims of the water crisis there. My glass is half empty because Michigan Governor Rick Snyder tried to shift the blame for the tainted water to the feds, the EPA. Obama should send those same feds down to charge Snyder with a crime for creating this health disaster.
Michelle Litjens.
Well, my glass is half empty because Collin Roth is leaving Wisconsin, and he's a great writer and super smart, but it's half full because he's moving over to the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, where I know he will continue to fight the good fight for conservative values.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, my glass is half empty because the intelligence community is worried that Donald Trump won't keep secret what he hears in party nominee intelligence briefings. But my glass is half full because President Obama decides what information Trump and Clinton will be told.
Collin Roth.
My glass is half full because this ugly, unusual, and wild Republican primary is over. It's half empty because the last man standing is Donald Trump.
Well, my glass is half full because Marquette University professor John McAdams filed suit last week against the school for breach of contract for their attempts to fire him for engaging in free speech. It's half empty because Marquette is about to blow a lot of money on legal bills, money that could have been spent on the school itself. Our Sunday Inside Countdown continues, shows that we are just 2 days away from the Nebraska and West Virginia primaries. The final primaries in California and 4 other states are 30 days away. The Republican National Convention is 71 days away, and Democrats begin their convention in 78 days, and the election just 184 days away. We will be right back. Donald Trump surged into the nomination. Hillary Clinton seems to slog toward it. But in November, barring something completely unforeseen, it's going to be Trump versus Clinton. So admit it, you didn't see this coming. But give me a sense how that shapes up. Lynne DeBruin, what are Democrats thinking right now? Are you getting all giddy about this?
Well,
or do you understand that you're talking about, you know, a year in which, you know, the outsiders have all the juice, that Hillary Clinton is the ultimate conventional wisdom insider candidate?
Well, a lot of Democratic Party leadership across this country, both at the national and state level, think it's all over, that Trump is, that Hillary's got it. I'm one of a group of Democrats across the country who look at what's happened to the Republican Party and their initial expectations and realize that it's not over yet. I do believe Hillary Clinton is going to get the Democratic nomination. Yeah. I do believe that she, at this point, is 13 points ahead of Trump and that it's going to be a nasty political fight. I think she's a way better campaigner than I know you think she is.
But how hard will it be for the Democrats to unite? Because we've seen this division on the Republican side, but you were a Sanders guy. Are the Sanders people going to, are they going to roll over? Are they going to be all in for Hillary?
I think on both sides you're going to see people staying home.
Yeah.
You know,
fewer Dems.
Well, yeah, it'll probably be fewer Dems. But I think one of the factors that's going to weigh into this that gives us pause is the Supreme Court nominee.
Right.
That's something
both sides.
Yeah, that's something that Republicans can rally around. Because who do they consider to be best? Hillary.
Is there any chance that Bernie Sanders runs as a third-party candidate?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. I do think even the latest polls show more Democrats willing to rally around the opposite candidate.
You know what's interesting in Wisconsin? 6 Bernie Sanders supporters are challenging Democrat assemblymen. Right? There is so much infighting going on right now in the Democrat Party now because Donald Trump is so loud and so obnoxious. We don't hear about the dysfunction going on between the Democrats.
Okay, Collin Roth, given the fact that pundits have been wrong and wrong and wrong all the time, there is that conventional wisdom that Hillary Clinton is in a dominant position. Is she? Is it possible that Donald Trump will defy all that conventional wisdom again in the general election?
I think she is in a dominant position right now. I think, but I wouldn't count Donald Trump out on a number of levels. I think we're an economic catastrophe or some type of terrorist attack away from seeing Donald Trump surge in the national polls. And I also think that that Donald Trump has shown a certain knack, a certain savvy that we haven't seen on a presidential level. Hillary Clinton is the embodiment of the status quo. If people really want change, they might turn to Donald Trump. That said, I do believe Democrats will have an easier time unifying around her.
Well, I mean, I look at the electoral map, and the Democrats, basically have to flip just a couple of states. And, I think that here's some of the fundamentals: is that as unpopular and as weak as Hillary is as a candidate, and I think she's extraordinarily weak as a candidate, the Times would seem to be the perfect challenge. In terms of the political environment for knocking her off. But Donald Trump has a 70% disapproval rating. His disapproval rating of minorities is stunning. The vote registration among Hispanics is just going through the roof. It's very hard for me to imagine any sort of a scenario
but
in which he turns that
Hillary's
around.
negatives could go up into the 60s too, right?
Yeah, right. They could go up. And that may be the situation you have in the fall, where you have one candidate who's in the 60s negatives, the other candidate in the 70s in the negative, which is why we'd love to have a third choice. You may not want to hear it, but we will tell you anyway. Let's hand out some unsolicited advice. Michael Holt, you're first.
Well, this is my buddy Collin. He spent a day with me and mine at Center Street and Fond du Lac Avenue. And now he thinks he's ready to leave Wisconsin and move on to greener pastures. Advice: it's rougher dealing with lawyers than it is with gang members.
Amen. Michelle Litjens.
If you live in Illinois and you're looking to build or buy a house, look in Kenosha. Illinois now has the highest property tax rate in the country. So come on over to Wisconsin.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, we just discussed this, but many Democrats believe Donald Trump, as the Republican nominee, automatically elects Hillary Clinton. My advice is to be confident, but not overly so. After all, look what happened to the Republican Party's expectations.
Collin Roth.
My advice is for all principled conservatives: make Donald Trump earn your support. You have no reason to give it freely and without conditions.
Well, if there was ever a year for a third-party candidate, this is it. The two major parties are nominating two of the most unpopular candidates in political history. America should not have to settle for that choice, a choice between two dishonest New York liberals. Run, somebody. When we come back, what attracted IKEA to Oak Creek? And as we go to break, laughs at the expense of a couple of Wisconsin Republicans in last week's White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Guests were asked to check whether they wanted steak or fish, but instead, a whole bunch of you wrote in Paul Ryan. That's not an option, people. Steak or fish. You may not like steak or fish, but that's your choice. GOP Chairman Reince Priebus is here as well. Glad to see that you feel that you've earned a night off. Congratulations on all your success. The Republican Party, the nomination process, it's all going great. Keep it up.
The mothership has landed. If you've never been to an IKEA store, you may not understand what all the excitement is about, but the Swedish home goods store is wildly successful with something like a cult following. And last week, officials announced that IKEA was moving to Oak Creek near I-94 and Drexel. Now, this is not the shopping channel, but isn't it worth noting that if the interstate wasn't there, we wouldn't see this kind of development? Isn't that the case,
That's
Michelle?
exactly right.
You know?
This is why transportation funding in the state of Wisconsin is so important. But doesn't this also say something for Wisconsin and how companies such as IKEA, they have, what, 41 stores across the country, are considering moving here because our state is an easy state to work with economically?
Well, I mean, you look at these various corridors, you know, the I-94, you have the Amazon.com development, you have the corridor between Milwaukee and Madison. There's a lot of developable, a lot of land for development in Waukesha. And the fact that IKEA would choose to build here would suggest to me that you know, some of these marketers are looking at this market here in southeastern Wisconsin and recognizing this is a target-rich environment. A lot of people here, a lot of people with money.
There are a lot of people willing to spend money, and that entire area, there is so much real estate down there along that highway that can be developed. We're going to see a lot more coming.
Lynne DeBruin.
Yeah, you know, even the environmentalists are going to have a hard time being upset with this because
they won't. They always will.
Well, actually, IKEA's got one of the best reputations across the world for pro-environmental building. But the bottom line is, you're talking 250 new full-time jobs, 500 construction jobs. It'll spur, just as you mentioned, area involvement around this. So people are delighted about this, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, and on my radio show, though, I did an inside check and said, do you know what they sell there at IKEA? Because everybody's enthusiastic. It's a win-win, the jobs, the creation, the economic development. What they sell at IKEA are foreign-made goods cheaply that people want. And for people who believe that somehow, you know, importing foreign-made goods is terrible for the economy, look at IKEA.
Yeah, it's insourcing.
And in fact, it is insourcing, but also, if in fact we slap massive tariffs on imports, what happens to the IKEAs of the world? I mean, is it really a good idea? Are we going to bring back jobs by slapping on taxes that American consumers are going to pay? But again, this is an indication to me that people are starting to notice southeastern Wisconsin as an as a place with economic potential.
You know, one of my questions was, when did Oak Creek decide to kick in at $5 million?
Right.
Wasn't it like 3 or 4 years ago? Did they know something then, or was it just all a coincidence? But you know, there's another side to this. You know, IKEA, you know, has this furniture you have to put together. That's not going to be good for marriages, because all these women are going to think that we're going to put together this stuff.
You know what? That actually is a great point. You want to have the ultimate test. I would suggest anybody thinking of getting married, try this with your significant other. If you can survive putting together a bookcase from IKEA, if you can do that, you are good to go. What is it you don't get? Let's go around the table this week. Mikel Holt, you're first.
What I don't get is why the county board keeps delaying approval of funding for the new Office of African American Affairs. It's been 4-5 months now, and they may delay it even longer. I guess it's politics as usual.
Michelle Litjens.
Charlie, I don't get why Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn would instruct police officers to scale back drug arrests so they can focus on violent crimes instead. Across the state, drug arrests grew by 11%, but drug arrests declined in Milwaukee by 3%.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, I don't get Ken Schupe's brand of Christianity. He's a conservative Christian truck driver who started to assist a disabled car, but left the driver stranded when he saw a Bernie Sanders bumper sticker on her car. Aren't Christians supposed to be good Samaritans?
Collin Roth.
Yes, they are. What I don't get is how people who complain that John McCain and Mitt Romney were insufficiently conservative are happily falling in line behind Donald Trump.
Okay, what I don't get is, are the folks who think it is a good idea to legalize pot, but want the government to come down hard on e-cigarettes? I'm missing something here, right? Next on Sunday Inside, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week, but first, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Mikel Holt, you're first.
Let me start with the losers. Unless you're a former politician, white women earn only 79% of what men earn in Wisconsin. Think that's bad? According to a new report, black and Hispanic women earn about 15% less than white women. Winner, me and my siblings for having the best mother in the world. To her and all the mothers, especially those raising children without a sperm donor in the house, happy Mother's Day.
Michelle Litjens.
Okay, on that note, happy Mother's Day, Mom. My losers are all of the UW professors who voted no confidence in the UW system President Ray Cross and the regents last week over tenure changes. Professors have more job security than any other profession, and they look like a group of crybabies who are out of touch with the people who work hard to pay the professors' paychecks. Wisconsin tourism is the winner this week. Tourism dollars increased by $500 million last year. We have a beautiful state to show off, and the weather's warming up, so we can all go out and enjoy Wisconsin.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, my winner is Tess Asplund, a 42-year-old Swedish woman of color who defiantly stood in front of several hundred uniformed marching neo-Nazis last Sunday. With her fist in the air, Asplund was the only bystander to openly defy the marchers. My loser is the NRM, who organized the march. The NRM is a Swedish far-right extremist political party opposed to non-whites immigrating to Sweden. Europe's refugee crisis has fueled racist movements and propelled white protectionist politicians into office. Sadly, Americans with the same fears have helped make Donald Trump the Republican nominee.
Collin Roth.
A winner this week is Paul Ryan, who put the impetus on the GOP nominee Donald Trump to unify the party and convince conservatives that he can be trusted. My loser is movement conservatism. While strong in the states, this Republican primary saw many talented and smart conservatives run an exceptionally strong field, only to falter before the voters. We have a lot of work to do.
Well, I agree with Collin Roth about Paul Ryan, but my winner is Collin, who's about to move on to bigger and better things with Wisconsin's 2 for Law and Liberty. It's been a pleasure to work with him and to watch him become one of the most insightful political commentators in the state. Loser, I also agree with him, the conservative movement. Donald Trump's victory was a repudiation of the movement that traced its lineage from William F. Buckley Jr. to Ronald Reagan to folks like Paul Ryan. The key is to somehow now find a way to preserve their integrity in a year when that seems to be an awfully short supply. Thanks for joining us, and join me for my radio show Monday morning on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. NBC is covering soccer next Sunday morning, so we will be on at 8 a.m. that day only. Happy Mother's Day and have a great week.